Hello and welcome once again to Fighting Back, our weekly or spin weekly webinar helping you, the entrepreneur, fight back against the impact of the COVID-19 virus on your business. Well, things are kind of winding up, right? Winding up is the wrong way to say it, but getting a little better. So I wanted to kind of today do one of my favorite things. Whenever I speak or do presentations, my favorite part is really the Q&A. I love the Q&A section. Now, obviously, it's not quite as much interaction. There's a bit more one way here, but I love answering questions because they're direct, they're real, and get down to some nitty gritty stuff that people are interested in. So that's the plan today. We're gonna go through a bunch of questions that were sent in. I tried to order them in a way that's as logical as possible. People may have others they want to fire in, and if they do, that's fine. We'll find a way to get to them too. But without further ado, let's give it a shot. So number one, thank you, Sam. Number one. I'm interested in sharpening the sword for the rest of 2020 and experience growth versus surviving. It's a good idea. I believe it's possible to grow revenue moving forward. Keen to hear your enlightenment or any enlightenment you can bring. I don't know if I can bring enlightenment, but I will do my best to give some advice. So here's the thing. The most important thing, I think, for you right now, of all the different myriad of things you could be paying attention to, is good old-fashioned customer service. Customer service has got to be your immediate concern, because if you have clients right now that are still with you, or clients that still care about you or are likely to come back, doing the very best you can and making them fall in love with you, that's the key. And it's over-the-top customer service that matters. See, a lot of times we think the basics are okay with customer service. We think, okay, as long as I provide them with good quality service, I do it on time, I do it on budget, and so forth, that's the level of customer service I need to deliver. But how often do you talk to somebody else about pretty good customer service? Like if you go to the store and you buy milk and the milk is reasonably priced and the person was relatively friendly, you go home to your family and say, you won't believe what happened today at the store. I got some reasonably priced milk and they were relatively friendly to me. Like, right? I mean, that's not what happens. So let me give you a little example so you can think about this for yourself, because this is super important stuff. Okay, so my father-in-law loves salmon. In particular, he loves Pacific salmon. He likes salmon from the West Coast, and he's on the East Coast of Canada. So every year I would dutifully, like a good son-in-law, I would go to the fish store and I would pick up salmon and I would bring it to him and would cook it, and great for family relations, right? All good. And then one year I brought him a salmon, and it was a bigger salmon and it was maybe a little soft. And he's a nice guy. We kind of mentioned, the salmon's a little bit soft this time. I thought, well, I can't let that happen. That's not okay for the family relations here, right? So the next time I went to the fish store, I said to the lady behind the counter, I said, just so you know, next time I want to get a little more firm salmon, a little smaller salmon. And she said, oh, okay, well, you next time you don't have to pay. Now, I didn't worry about that. I said, no big deal. But when I went to get my salmon next time for my trip, she wouldn't take any money. She insisted, no, you can have it for free. I want you to be happy. We picked a good salmon for you. Now, if I stop there, that would be a pretty interesting, pretty compelling customer service story, right? But it doesn't end that, because I went to the airport the next day with my wife, and we're standing behind the the machine that you punch in to get your ticket. My wife looks over my shoulder and she says, "Hey, honey, I think somebody's watching you." I said, "What are you talking about?" I looked over, and there's the fish lady standing in the middle of the Vancouver airport, looking at me going, wait. And she runs out of the airport. And we're looking at each other like, what the heck is going on, right? She comes back into the airport. She's carrying a package. This package was a fish. She took the fish out of my hand, replaced it with the fish she was carrying, and said, take this one. It's fresher. It's better. Now, that's incredible. I didn't tell her what time I was going, by the way. She sat there. She knew I was going to Ontario. She sat there at the airport with her poor husband, I guess, driving the loop outside of the airport, watching to find me, to give me a salmon that was fresher, that I didn't even pay for in the first place. Now, you tell me something. How many people do you think I've told that story to? I told that story on national television. Okay, like that's how impressive that was to me. And the business is now gone. But man, I gave her every kind of business I could think of. I gave her all my business. That's the power of a customer service story that goes over the top. So you want to know what you can do right now for your business? You can focus like crazy on your customers, and you can give them excuses, reasons to talk about why your customer service is so compelling, because that's the key to making that happen. All right. So next question. Okay, how can I refocus my team to operate at peak level with limited resources or reduced resources in staff and budget? Okay, I'll refocus my team to operate at peak level with limited resources or reduced resources in staff and in budget. Okay, that's a great question. I think a couple things. First of all, you want to make sure that you've got your A team, right? I mean, I've said in previous webinars how incredibly important it is that you hang on as much as you possibly can to your A team, even in the face of declining, your revenues declining. Do the very best, even if you have to bring them in part-time. And if you can't even bring them in part-time, stay in close contact with them. Like whatever you can do, keep connected to those really, really great people, because those are your key, that's your key team. Those are the employees that love your business and care about your business and are willing to kind of go above and beyond. So you got to make sure that's the first thing, because it is way easier to find, hold on to, and of course hire people that are motivated than it is to take people that are not motivated and make them motivated, right? That's a way more difficult, if not almost impossible kind of challenge. Okay, next thing is think of your business as a startup. Okay, I know it's not a startup. I know maybe you've been in business for 20, 30 years, who knows? Been in business for a long time, but you shrunk. Things are changing. Things are challenging you. You have to have the mentality of a startup. You got to think about your business as off the ground. And so I want you to start by redesigning your org chart. Okay, go back to your organizational structure. Go back to your org chart. Think about it from the beginning. Like if you could just imagine, because you almost have this opportunity, clean slate, wipe your business clean. What would an organizational chart look like that made the most sense for the kind of business you're trying to build? Okay, think about and draw it out on paper or Visio or whatever you want, whatever works for you. Lay that thing out and think carefully, and then put the names in the boxes of your A team. And you may find that you have, because your company's smaller, you got to put the same name in a few boxes. That's okay. That's life. But at least you've got some clarity around that a little bit. Now you've got your A team. You've got some clarity around what people are accountable for doing. Now I want you to start thinking about. You asked, the question was, how do we motivate them and how do we inspire them? Or I think the question was refocus them. For peak performance. Well, people are driven to peak performance by being attracted to the work that they're doing. Of course, making money is important for everybody. It's maybe more of a direct line for you as the business owner or the entrepreneur, and making money is important to everyone. But what's even more important, once people get that kind of taken care of, is work with purpose. And this is really, really important, and a lot of business owners dismiss it at first glance, but it's incredibly important. It's the heart. It's stuff that drives people to want to do that little extra, that little bit more, that come a little early, stay a little late, do a little more. So how do we do that? Well, it's good old-fashioned mission, vision, and values. Okay, those, and I don't care what you call those things. People have different labels, different names for these things. It's the meaning that matters to me. So let's just briefly talk about the meaning. So when I say mission, I mean your purpose, like your reason for being, that sort of thing, right? Think of Google's mission as making the world's information available to all. That's a cause. That's a purpose. People can get behind that. They can want to be part of that and be proud to be part of that. So really put some effort to thinking about what your cause is. Our cause is to help people achieve their entrepreneurial dreams, right? That's our reason for being. What's your reason for being? Like, what is it? And then your vision. What are your goals? What's your big picture goals? What do you want to try to accomplish? And it's hard to know right now, and we'll talk about that more today here. But what do you want to try to achieve? And share that. Like, talk about that. Business owners notoriously keep that stuff locked away inside their heads. Like, they don't share nearly enough that information. And now is the time more than ever. You want to motivate your team to grow and to build your company? Well, you got to tell them why they should be there. That's your mission. And you got to tell them where you're going, right? that's your vision, so they can get behind it and get motivated for it. And then finally, it's your values, right? And the values are kind of the rules that we engage in, so that together we know that work ethic, together we know that customer service is important, this sort of thing, right? So share and communicate that stuff as much as possible. All right, next question. I've heard that successful businesses often rise out of a recession. They do. How can I re-energize my business after COVID-19 and possibly grow it bigger than ever before? I'll read it one more time. I've heard that successful businesses often rise out of a recession. How can I re-engage my business after COVID-19 and possibly grow it even bigger than ever before? So every before, I think it means ever before. Okay, so that's awesome. I think the answer is in the plan. I was discussing it a little bit before, but the answer is in the plan. Get your people together and talk about the plan. So I'll tell you a little bit about how to go about creating a successful plan that works. Let me give you kind of the framework of the basics of that. Could be helpful. There's kind of three parts to it to make it happen. Okay, so the first part is the inner looking part, the self-analysis part. And while I don't have a whole plan for you to kind of review here right now, just focus on a SWOT, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and strengths. Threats. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The SWOT of your business. And take a look at yourself and be really, really honest. Really, really honest about what you're doing, what you've done well, what your challenges are, and be honest with your people about this stuff too. There's no point in hiding anything from your people now, by the way. Everything is transparent out there in the marketplace. Everybody's been hit. Your people have been hit. Your employees have been hit. The companies have been hit. Your competitors have been hit. Your customers have been hit. Everybody's been hit. Okay? So open, honest, transparent. Look at yourself and have a genuine discussion. Yourself meaning your business. What are we good at? What are we not good at? What are the things that are at risk for us? And just get a genuine, honest look. Then that's part one. Part two is then you take that lens and you turn it outward. Okay? And you look out in the marketplace and you say, okay, so what's happening with the economy? We'll make some best guesses, at least. Certainly challenges, that much is for certain, right? And we can talk about some details in a bit. Look at your client base. That's changing. It is changing. The way they behave, the way they interact with you, the way they think, the way they operate is changing. Maybe even your client base themselves, maybe even the demographic, in other words, who you're selling to, that may be even changing based on what's happened in the economy. So looking out, and then your competitors, of course, do a SWOT analysis on your competitors. What are they doing? What are they likely to do? What's going on? So that's kind of part two. Part one, look in. Part two, look out. And then part three is create the plan, right? To go for creating the plan. And kind of here's a simple way to build a successful plan for your business. I want to first comment, though, that you should, in my opinion, I agree with this question, that, you should think big. You should, why not? Like, plan for the future. If they say if you shoot for the stars, at least you'll get to the moon, or whatever the phrase is, right? I mean, shoot for something big, aim for something big, and then see, when you start breaking down that plan, see what's logical and see what can be actually achieved. But aim high. And so I talked before, remember, about starting this new organizational chart, right? I said create an org chart for a startup. But it's not exactly an org chart that's really tiny. I don't mean an org chart that's got just one or two positions on it. I mean a complete org chart of where you want your business to go. Then you sort of reverse engineer that and you put people's names in multiple boxes, but at least you've got like a framework of what makes logical sense of what your business should look like if it were to achieve these goals that you started to lay out for yourself. And again, later we'll talk a bit more about how to identify some of those goals. But you got kind of a plan there, this org chart. And the reason I'm emphasizing the org chart is because an organizational chart is more than just a tool that you use to discuss accountability. That's part of its job, who's accountable for what and so forth. But it's really a living framework that you can use to bolt everything to build the structure and the plan around for your business. That's why it's so important for the planning process. So imagine that you've got this org chart right now that I've been talking about, and imagine that we're going to lay on the org chart your goals. Okay, so we're going to put at the top of the org chart, we're going to say these are your strategic high-level objectives: market share, profits, whatever, customer satisfaction, some of these big picture goals. And then we're going to let those goals cascade like water cascading down a waterfall down the organizational chart. And because the organizational chart is one that makes sense for where your business is headed, you're going to get logical categories that you need to address in order to achieve the overall goals. And then you ask yourself this very important question: what do I need to do in my finance department, for example, to logically achieve my overall company goals? Or what do I have to do in my marketing department to logically achieve my overall company goals? And so on and so forth, right? So you cascade these goals down the org chart. Next, we can start to think about how we measure our progress. KPIs, or key performance indicators, metrics, numbers, whatever you want, or whatever you call them, or OKRs, whatever, the various types of numbers that you use to track progress towards your objectives. And those can be numbers that help you measure your progress towards a stated objective, like generating more business. It can be numbers towards more qualitative things like customer service, right? But whatever your objectives are, you need to have some way of measuring your progress towards those objectives. It's super important. Otherwise, you don't know if you're on track. And then, so that's here. And then now we can instill the position outlines, and that's just the term I use. A lot of people call them job descriptions. I won't get into why I call them position outlines because we got limited time today. But a job description, in my mind, is something that we use to hire people with. Position outline is the whole position itself and how it operates. So we want to lay out as much as we can in detail about how that position in the company is operating, and then eventually we can build systems that kind of go horizontally across the organizational chart as well. So this is a framework. See, an org chart is a really powerful framework to help you to create not just a dream about what you might want to achieve, but how you take that dream and bring it into reality so that you've got tools that you can use to be more successful and more likely an outcome of achieving those goals. So hope that helps. Okay, next question. All right, what will be some of the major changes to the economic and business environment coming out of COVID-19, and how can I adapt my business for this new world? I don't know, but I'm going to take a stab at it to see if this can help you out. I took some notes and I thought about this question a little bit, so here are my thoughts, and I hope this helps. I think, number one, that there's going to be a social impact. So I think that the way people have been affected psychologically by the COVID-19 virus is causing people to be more socially aware than they were before. Certainly, this is anecdotal, but the social media, it certainly seems to be more and more of a buzz with concerns for social impact. So I think that you need to be aware of that and think about that for your business going forward. It's probably important. Another thing is supply chain. So we were growing a lot of our clients with global international supply chains. I think that that's already changing, and I think that that's going to continue to change, and that there's going to be local and domestic self-sufficiency that are going to become more and more prevalent in this business world, in the supply chain aspect of business. I still think we can sell internationally, and we can do business internationally, but I do think that supply chain and risk around supply chain for people is going to focus. So that has consequences to it, of course, because there can be costs that can rise. You got to think carefully about that, but you should definitely be aware of that. Already, many of our clients are looking for backups and extra places, support, for 2 and 3 suppliers from different locations where they can get products and services. Okay, technology. That's an obvious one, I think, but it's still a super important one. Technology's been changing, of course, all along, but there's been this hyper focus on it from the COVID-19 virus, that especially, of course, around communication and so forth. So, but I think, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, which Internet of Things took me a long time to even understand what that was. The Internet of Things is basically just, building communication, chips and so forth into really, I got a pencil, not a very good example, but my chair maybe, anything really, and then allowing us to draw information from that we can then use to make intelligent information for all kinds of reasons, and that's clearly going to progress. Communication, of course. What we're doing here, all of our meetings are on Zoom. We've been doing that for a long time, but communication and video conferencing and all that stuff, it's going to go to a different level, I think, than ever before. Working from home, that's another one. Obviously, people are working from home now, a lot of people, and it's highly likely that we'll see more people continue to work from home. There will be office environments, of course, and we seem from people I know in the industry to be moving back towards a little bit of the old school in office environments for when people actually do come to an office. In other words, private offices, because we're creating more protection for people. Travel, obviously, has changed dramatically and will likely continue to change for some time. People are working from home, of course. Even in the short distances, there's going to be less driving, which possibly could put less cars on the road. Although, interesting question is what's going to happen with public transit. How's that going to be affected? In the fact, people get together quite packed inside public transit. So interesting to think through what outcomes might come as a result of that. And then health. Like there's a renewed focus on people's health. People are concerned with that, with the virus. I really think it's logical. I think that's going to continue to expand. That idea is going to continue to expand. So those are some of my thoughts. Think about that stuff and how your business might interact with that, and how you might be able to leverage some of those ideas. Okay, next question. How are your clients preparing for after COVID-19? We'll probably answered some of those questions, some of this question already, but we're definitely watching cash flow. Most of our clients are watching the cash flow every day, because cash flow is incredibly important. There's just nothing more important than cash flow for keeping your business. It's your air, right, for a business, keeps you alive. So we're watching that super carefully with clients. We're obviously doing strat planning sessions, trying to help them to figure out their strategies for how they're going to move forward, and encouraging them and reminding them and helping them to stay super close to their customers. This is true. Like I said, even if they're not buying from you, by the way, if you've got close customers that they're not buying from you right now for, economic reasons or because of physical, social distancing reasons or whatever, do your best to stay in contact with them by email, phone, whatever, because those relationships are your lifeblood, and that's what's going to bring you back to life. That's going to be your best chance for a next kind of jump. But that's why I talked about customer service at the beginning, so important. And your chance for a next little jump to bring yourself back is going to be because you've maintained really excellent relationships with customers that disappeared. So don't let that slide even one little tiny bit. Okay, and then of course they're obviously preparing for the safe return of their employees to work, and so on and so forth. Alrighty, next question. Thank you. Is it fair for a business? I like this one. Is it fair for a business to increase its prices in order to recoup some of its losses due to the coronavirus? This is a hot topic and a hot question for people right now, especially in industries like restaurants and so forth. Others as well, though, that have been really devastated. But some of those restaurants are some of the ones that are particularly asking this question. They got a couple things going on, right? Not only have you got losses from not being in business for a while, but if you're in a business where customers have to come into your place of business, you have to change the way that happens. There's costs to preparing for that, and you've likely got less customers in the store, or less customers in the restaurant at a given time, because you've got more space between them. All of that stuff is going to impact cash flow. So I can understand why somebody would say, I'd like to increase my prices, but at the same time, is it fair? Is it right? So my answer to that is, unless you've got a monopoly, okay, fair has nothing to do with it. Okay, it's the wrong question in some ways. I mean, because fair is simply nothing to do with the equation whatsoever. You don't base prices on fairness. Fairness is fair. You don't base prices on your need, even, quite frankly. Yes, of course, you need a certain amount of money, 100%. But you base prices on the customer's perception of value. That is how you base a price. And that's it, by the way. That's you got some room, wiggle room in there, up and down. But it's mostly about how the customer perceives value and their willingness to pay as a result of that value. So if you're in a situation where there's disparity, where you have a need to charge more than the customer's perception of value, charging more is not going to help you, right? You will get less customers or no customers, and the equation will not fall in your favor. Guaranteed, okay? Guaranteed. So what's the solution? The solution is value, right? The solution is, if you want to charge more, you need to increase the value that you offer. that's where you need to get creative. That's where you need to think outside of the box. And value can be thought of in a lot of different ways. So, prestige can be a value. Like, why do some automobiles cost so much more than other automobiles? A Lamborghini is a really nice car, but is the cost of a Lamborghini compared to the cost of a Toyota, is the difference all in the driving ability? No, it's also in the fact that it's a Lamborghini, right? So so you've got to find ways to add value. That's one way. Another way is one I mentioned earlier. It's one of the easiest and best ways for you, and it's customer service, right? Adding customer service is in over the top, incredible customer service that has people love you costs a very limited amount of money, possibly even nothing if you do it right. And that increases value, and that allows you to charge more. So think carefully about how you can add value to your customers, and that will allow you then to increase your prices as net, which by the way is a good thing for a company to do anyway. If you add more value, you add more price, people don't mind paying the price because there's more value. Everybody wins, right? That's the goal, right? So forget fairness. That's a pathway that's a pathway to destruction for you. I guarantee it. Okay. Here we go. How do I avoid falling back into the same trap if we have another virus or some other big impact on the economy? Well, I would say that we could probably change that word. I don't want to scare you or be negative, but I'd probably change the word if to when. When we have another, I don't say a virus, hopefully not a virus, but we get recessions, like stuff's going to happen. Something's going to happen. Something's going to hit the fan at some point again. Okay. So how do you protect yourself against that? And I think that's a really, really excellent question. So the first thing I would say is you need to have the perspective of a buyer. What I mean by that is a buyer of your business. Imagine that you're putting your business on the market to sell, and a buyer is looking back at your business and they're deciding if they should sell, if they should buy your business. Okay. And so my question is, what are the key things that would make that buyer go, yeah, I want to buy that business? And why is that a great perspective? Because a buyer will buy a successful, low-risk business. So let's ask ourselves the question first. What are some of the things that a buyer looks for? Because they may not think about it. The buyer isn't thinking about, well, today maybe, but before nobody's thinking about the COVID-19 virus, right? But they are thinking certain things when they look at a business. And they're really instructional kind of things for us to take a look at. First of all, a buyer wants a growing business. They want a business that's growing, heading somewhere, okay? And they're interested in that because, of course, the buyer buys the future and there's a bigger business, bigger opportunity. But from a safety perspective, a growing business is a business that has the ability to adapt and change, because that's what it's doing. That's how in order to grow, you're doing things and you're always improving. And that's allowing your business to continue to grow. So that's number one. Okay. Number two, a buyer wants a business that is predictable. So predictable means that you can predict the cash flow in the future. And so they're going to look at a history of the business and they say, well, was cash flow, were the profits from this business and the cash flow from this business somewhat consistent over time? Little ups and downs, but somewhat consistent over time. That's what they're going to think. They're going to look at that. What does that mean for protection and security in terms of business and your perspective? Well, it means that the business is more resilient, right? Because you maybe had to fight like crazy in the bad times and you rode out the good times a little bit, but you kept your business consistent. And cash flow that is consistent is super, super powerful from a buyer's perspective and should give you a lot of confidence as an owner in terms of the success, in terms of the resilience of your business going forward. Okay. Next is independent. The third one is independent. And a buyer looks at a business and they say, well, I would like that business to not be reliant on the owner or one or two key personnel. Because in their mind, at some point they're going to leave and they want the business to be able to stand on its own 2 feet to be successful as a business. And by the way, you should want that as a business owner for yourself as well. Their business shouldn't rely entirely on you. That's really important. And so that's important in terms of risk, because if a business relies on one or a few people and those one or a few people leave or challenge, or in fact, quite frankly, we've only got their brains to put together, that's limiting. We want the entire team to be able to continue to be part of the process of growing that business, to contribute their ideas and so forth, right? So an independent business, right? And finally, a buyer wants a transparent business. So I call it a glass business. Okay, it's a business that you can kind of see through it. You could look at the business, and as you look through it, you can see, oh, that's how I see that you generate your business, and that's how I see you manufacture your product, right? And that's how I see that you hire your employees. Like you can kind of see through this imaginary glass business to how things work. And what that is a system and structure that allows the buyer to see that. Right, there's processes and structure inside that business that allows it to be transparent, allows them to be confident in what they see. That's important for a buyer, and guess what? That's super important for a business in a tough economy. Why? Because, like I mentioned earlier, you sometimes need to change or pivot. And a business that has structure, process, and so forth, that's like a block of wood compared to like a block of Jello. A block of Jello, they look the same, sitting there, right? They both look the same. But if I push my finger against the Jello, my finger goes in the Jello, right? The Jello might wobble around a bit, but it doesn't move very much. Push my finger against the block of wood, shift nice and tight and crisp. That's what systems do for your business, and that's why structure allows a business to pivot. I've talked in previous episodes about clients that we've had that have done these amazing pivots, like unbelievable pivots with their business, just to radically different industries and all kinds of stuff. The reason this was possible was because there was enough structure, enough process to allow the business to pivot successfully, to move, right, without too much movement in that process. Okay, a couple other things I want to talk about with this question, actually. One has to do with subscription or repeat business. It's really good for your business, if you don't have it right now, to try to have at least 20-30% if you can of your business be subscription-based, repeat kind of like consumable product kind of business. This is the kind of business that pays you month after month after month. Typically, they're products that are relatively highly needed by the companies or the individuals that you're selling them to, because they're continuing to buy them over and over again. So there's a lot of strength and resilience in having some component of that. Also, by the way, adds tremendously to the market value of your business if you ever want to sell it one day. And one more thing I thought I would say about this was variable versus fixed expenses. Okay, so having as many of your expenses in a business variable expenses as possible gives your business, again, more resilience should markets crash on you. And what I mean by variable, it's important to understand what I mean by variable, because many people don't understand that exactly. There's really those two kinds of expenses, right? You've got your fixed expenses and variable expenses. And fixed expenses are fairly obvious. They're expenses that stay the same month by month. Variable expenses are not expenses that just vary. They're expenses that vary in relation to sales. If you have more sales, you have more expenses. If you have less sales, you have less expenses. Good portion of your cost of goods sold, for example, is often a variable expense. But sometimes labor is not. In other words, you may still have the same number of people working for you and taking money from your payroll month by month, even though sales go up and down. That may not vary too much for you. And so you need to think about that and have as much of the expenses you possibly can in variable if you want to really, really protect your business. Now, there's sometimes a cost to that, because outsourcing is one of the strategies for creating variable expense, and sometimes outsourcing costs money. However, if you're really good at one thing, like let's say sales, and you're less good at something else, like let's say logistics, then you outsource that portion of your business, it may be that you can put more effort and focus on the thing that you're very, very good at and ultimately be more successful. So run the numbers, think that through, but it can be quite a successful approach. And certainly you do give some protection to the business when you have more items that are variable. So something to really think about, okay? Alrighty, next question. What are some of the most important lessons you learned during the coronavirus? I learned that people and entrepreneurs are amazing. That's what I learned, that people are unbelievable. Entrepreneurs are folks that can take anything, I think, and survive and make it through. So not that I didn't know that. I think I knew that, but I saw it in front of me. I sit in a very privileged seat. I have a whole team of business advisors that works with clients around the world. And so we have all these entrepreneurs all around the world that we deal with. And I get to see these people functioning and operating in their world. And I got to see, it broke my heart, but I got to see many of them go through incredible struggles and challenges, having to lay off people that they didn't want to lay off. And, clients losing 80-90% of their business. I mean, even more sometimes, depending on the industry and so forth. I saw all kinds of stuff. And then I saw people, shake it off and turn around and grow. And sometimes in a totally different direction, but they just went. And so, yeah, that's probably the thing that impressed me absolutely the most. Maybe I can say I've learned. And then the second thing is that fundamentals, business core fundamentals, which has really been what I've been teaching and doing my whole life, or most of my adult life, I should say. Those things I started, I would say my belief maybe even got shaken just a little bit. I was a little bit of a doubter. I hate to admit it, but when the virus hit and things really went sideways, I started to wonder, are some of the things that I've been teaching and helping business owners to go through, are they still valid when so much of the wealth of people suddenly seem to disappear? But I thought about it, and we've fought through it, and I've also shaken off that notion, and I've realized that, in fact, fundamentals are more important now than ever. Understanding your target market, your market position, understanding what your core competency is, understanding what you're building, putting KPIs in place, job descriptions, systems, strategic objectives and goals, like all of the fundamental nuts and bolts that make a healthy business strong. That is the stuff that has allowed our clients to survive, right? And so, you know what? Fundamentals are important. Mission statements, vision statements, values, all of these things are important. They continue to be important, and I believe they're even more important now. And that is what is going to take you out of this thing. So, don't forget that the fundamentals are important, and they are going to be the tool that's going to get you where you want to go. I promise you. Okay, another question. What are some of the risks I need to watch out for as the economy starts to recover? So hard to predict, very hard to predict. I've got a couple ideas that I can share, but it's very hard to predict. But I think because it's hard to predict, I think the most important thing for you is change management. Okay, change management is a skill that you and your team and your company must embrace. You have to be able to change, to pivot, to alter, to handle that and to move through that, because things are going to change, and I have some ideas, but nobody knows for certain exactly, at least nobody that I know knows for certain exactly what is going to happen. So embrace change management and focus on it, learn about it, work at it with your people and so forth. Now, what are some of the things that are going to happen that I think are pretty certain? Our government and many governments have been spending money like right, left, and center. Some for good reason, but nonetheless, they've been spending, right? A lot. So much so that it's going to hit our economy in ways we haven't even seen it yet. Like, some people are getting a little bit of money coming into them from government, extra support and so forth. You're kind of feeling okay in your world. I don't want to be a pessimist, but we've spent a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. And this is going to have an impact on inflation. This is going to have an impact on our economy in ways that we can't even work out exactly, but it's going to be significant. That's just a fact. And so you need to be aware of that, which means you need to watch cash flow. Like, that needs to be a new skill set of yours. If you don't have a skill set and understanding of your cash flow, you need to get that. Like, that's a business fundamental now for everyone. It's really understanding your cash flow and having a tight eye on that as we go forward. Okay. Prices, when inflation goes up, price. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. Prices are going to rise for sure in some areas. And as a result of inflation, but also as a result of the way we're doing business. We have less people in a restaurant, they're going to have to charge more for food, or something is going to happen, right? Something's going to happen to make that work out. And your customers' behaviors are already changed, and they're going to change. So be aware of that as well. Be highly aware, and be highly alert. So I think the best advice I can get is eyes wide open, watch carefully, read everything you possibly can, and get good at change management. Okay, there we go. Next question, we can roll. Thanks. Okay, I own a public-facing business, right? What can I do to help my employees as we reopen the business? Okay, so I'm not a full expert in this, but there is kind of, I did a little research for you, and there's kind of an established 4-step process that most governments are communicating to businesses as they start to reopen and bring employees back in. And so step 1 is kind of 4 levels. You might say level 1 is the separation. In other words, you got to give probably less people. Keep them at least 2 meters apart, that sort of thing. So that's the thing. So that's step 1 is the separation plan that has to happen. Step 2 is if that's not working, you may need to put physical barriers in. Like I said, private offices I was talking about before, or plexiglass in between when people are working, with plexiglass in between customers, these sorts of things. Phase 3, the next 3 is policies and procedures. Right, and so you got to have cleaning procedures in some businesses. Things are continuously being cleaned. You got to get a little more tight with your processes, right? And if you're not tight with your processes now, I'm encouraging you got to start going down that path. All right, for lots of reasons, right? And this is just one. Maybe no sharing of tools, that sort of thing. So there's got to be some policies around protection and keeping your people safe. And the last level is obviously the PPEs, the personal protection. What's the E stand for? I don't know, personal protection equipment. There we go. Like your face masks and so forth, and your hand sanitizer. Although I think hand sanitizer is a good idea anyways. Just put that at the front of your place and let everybody have at it as they come in and go. So there's going to be some requirements, some legal requirements for sure around how that goes in different countries, different provinces, different states, and so forth are going to have different requirements. So get to know what's required. But more important, it's the right thing to do anyway. So just do it. Okay. And I guess last question: are there any templates you can share on a daily cash scorecard to monitor cash as sales grow and strain cash flow? Well, that's a great question. That's a great question because I love your attitude, because you're quite certain that you're going to grow so fast that you're going to have cash flow constraints. So love it. That's awesome. I want to work with you. Yeah, for sure. The answer is yes. I'll share some stuff with everybody else. I'll put some stuff out there that can help. But maybe some comments on cash flow for people to kind of wind this up. Like I said, understand your cash flow. Be really aware of it. Produce aging reports. Aging report, if you don't know what that is, it's a real simple report everybody should have. Shows there's a receivable aging report, a payable aging report, and all that's doing is a report that's saying how late are your clients in paying? Are they paying you in 30 days? Are they paying you in 60 days? Are they paying you in 90 days? Are they paying on time? What's going on with money that's coming in from your clients? And the same, the outgoing, the payables. Are you paying all of your vendors on time as well? And you want to compare those two things. And obviously, if you're bringing money in more slowly than you're putting money out, then we got to pay attention to that. So, but anyway, I'll share some a tool that can be helpful. And with that, I guess that's it. I guess thank you for your attention. I hope this was helpful. I hope it was useful for you. It's sure been a lot of fun for me. And here's the thing: if you want me to do more of these, I'm glad to do it. I really enjoy this format, actually. So maybe send me a note or put a note in the comments or something like that, and we'll certainly be glad to do more of this kind of thing as time goes on here. So have a fantastic day. Keep your chin up. Work hard. We're going to get through this thing. Be well, and of course, reach out anytime I can be of any help. It's really all I want to do is be of help. Okay, thanks so much. Take care.